I'm 79 years old, and after a lifetime of reading, praying, watching, and living, I can tell you that most people have held these verses in their hands their entire lives, and never once understood what they were actually holding. Not because they weren't sincere, not because they didn't care, but because they were reading scripture looking for comfort when what was written there was something far more powerful than comfort. What was written there were laws, principles as reliable as gravity. And there are seven, just seven, that I have watched work without exception in every kind of life, in every kind of circumstance, without a single failure when a person truly applies them. Most people approach a powerful verse the way they approach a painkiller, something to reach for when things get hard, something to make the ache a little more bearable. And I understand that there is real comfort in Scripture. But the verses I'm talking about don't just comfort you, they move things, they shift circumstances, they change the trajectory of a life when they're actually lived inside of, not just recited. That's the distinction almost nobody makes, and it's the reason so many sincere people wonder why the Bible didn't seem to work for them the way they expected. Start with Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now, most people hear that and think Solomon is warning them about bad relationships, toxic people, negative environments, and he is. But that reading barely scratches the surface of what this verse is actually saying. The word translated as heart in ancient Hebrew is lev, and lev doesn't mean your emotions, it means your center, your seat of thought, perception, will, and interpretation. It's the thing inside you that decides what reality means. When Solomon says, guard it above all else, he is saying that whatever you allow to live at your center will become your actual lived experience, not your imagined experience, your real, daily, concrete life. What you feed that center reproduces. What you neglect that center to absorb becomes your default output, your decisions, your relationships, your results, your future. And here's what most people miss about that verse. Guarding your heart is not passive. It is not simply about keeping bad things out. It's equally, maybe even more, about what you deliberately put in, because that center will be filled with something. It doesn't sit empty waiting for you. If you don't alter what lives there, the world will alter it for you. Your fears will move in, your old wounds will set up permanent residence. The opinions of people who don't even know you will become the voice you hear when you're deciding what you're worth. Guard it, intentionally, aggressively, because everything flows from it. That's not poetry. That's a description of how the human mind actually operates. And every serious discipline of psychology and neuroscience eventually arrived at the same conclusion Solomon wrote down 3,000 years ago. But it goes even deeper than that. The moment you genuinely understand that your inner world is producing your outer world, you stop being a passenger in your own life. You start being the driver. That shift alone, fully absorbed, is worth more than most people learn in a lifetime. Romans 8:28 is one of the most quoted verses in all of Scripture. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose, and people reach for it like a bandage when something goes wrong. That's not what this verse is. This verse is a description of a law of integration. Notice it doesn't say each thing is good, it says all things work together for good. Together. That single word changes everything. It means the painful thing, the failed thing, the thing you lost, the door that never opened. None of those are accidents in the plan. They are the plan. They are being woven together with everything else and is something that serves a purpose you may not yet be able to see. The person who truly grabs hold of this stops grieving every closed door and starts asking what this is building toward. That is not naive optimism. That is a completely different and far more powerful orientation toward the events of life. The real power is in the second half of that verse, who have been called according to his purpose. This is a conditional. It's not a universal promise extended to everyone regardless of how they're living. It operates specifically for the person who has aligned themselves with something larger than their own comfort and agenda. The moment a person steps into that orientation, genuinely not performatively, they begin to experience what can only be described as a kind of momentum that doesn't come from their own effort. Circumstances arrange themselves, connections arrive. The thing needed appears before it was asked for. That's what this verse is pointing at. Jeremiah 29:11 may be the most recognizable verse in the entire Bible right now. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. It lives on walls and notebooks and graduation cards, and the promise is real, But almost nobody reads what God says immediately after it in verses 12 and 13. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. The future and the hope are inseparable from the seeking, not casual interest, not occasional prayer. With all your heart, the whole lev, the whole center, pointed in one direction. The promise of Jeremiah 29:11 cannot be claimed without the condition of Jeremiah 29:12 and 13 being lived. That's why so many people have that verse on their wall and still feel like their future never arrived. They took the destination without taking the road. Isaiah 40:31 is the one that has kept more exhausted people going than perhaps any other. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. The Hebrew word behind hope here is kava, and it does not mean passive wishing. It means to twist together, the way individual strands of fiber are wound around each other to create a rope far stronger than any single strand alone. To hope, in the biblical sense, is to actively intertwine yourself with something greater than your own capacity. When you do that, when you genuinely twist your life into connection with a source that doesn't run dry, you begin to draw on energy that is not generated from inside you. It moves through you from somewhere else. That's the secret of every person who has outlasted what should have finished them, who kept going when logic said stop, who finished something that started falling apart before it was complete. They weren't stronger than everyone else. They were drawing from a deeper well. Matthew 6:33 is perhaps the most strategically powerful verse Jesus ever spoke. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Just before this, Jesus had spent several verses naming the things people exhaust their entire lives chasing: security, provision, the future, what they'll eat, what they'll wear, what tomorrow holds. And he says, stop making those things your primary pursuit. Make alignment with what is right and true your first and most consistent energy. And watch what happens. All these things will be added, not earned, not chased down, added. This is not a suggestion. This is a description of a law. When a person's primary orientation is toward righteousness, toward genuine alignment with what is good and true and just, the things they actually need have a way of arriving without the frantic chasing. I have watched this operate too many times to call it coincidence. The people who grabbed this verse and actually restructured their priorities around it consistently found that provision followed alignment in ways they could not explain and did not expect. Philippians 4:13 is the most misapplied verse in modern Christianity. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It gets quoted before sports competitions. It gets put on athletic gear. But Paul wrote it from prison. He wasn't describing unlimited achievement. He was describing unlimited adaptability. Read what surrounds it. He says he had learned to be content in all circumstances, in abundance and in need, in freedom and in chains, full and hungry. The power of this verse is not about what you can win. It's about what you can withstand, what you can remain stable through. The person who has genuinely learned this is functionally undefeatable by external circumstances, because there is no condition that can destabilize them. Take their money, they're still standing. Take their comfort, they're still producing. Take their status, they're still moving forward. That kind of person cannot be broken by what happens to them, and that is an entirely different kind of strength than the one most people are seeking. And then Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which cannot be treated as separate verses, because they are one complete thought. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. The instruction to not lean on your own understanding is not an instruction to stop thinking. It is an instruction to hold your conclusions with open hands, to remain teachable even, especially, when you are most certain you have things figured out. Because the moment you're certain you understand a situation completely, you stop receiving new information. You stop noticing what doesn't fit. You stop course correcting. And you walk confidently in a direction that leads somewhere you didn't intend to go. The people who built the most durable, meaningful lives I have ever witnessed were not the most brilliant. They were the most consistently teachable. They stayed open the longest. They said, across decades I might be wrong, show me. And in all your ways, submit. Not just the major decisions, not just the crossroads moments, all your ways. The small daily choices are where the actual direction of a life gets set, long before the big moments arrive to reveal it. Here is how all of this lands in a real life. These 7 verses are not affirmations to cycle through every morning. They are architectural principles. They are load bearing walls. Guard what lies at your center, because your center is generating your world. Look for the integrated pattern in your painful experiences rather than simply mourning them in isolation. Seek wholeheartedly rather than claiming promises you haven't positioned yourself to receive. Actively twist yourself into connection with a source larger than your own reserves. Stop chasing the things and start aligning with what's right, then watch the things locate you. Train yourself for adaptability across every condition so that nothing external can break what is being built internally. And hold your conclusions with open hands in every single way, every single day. The person who builds their life on all 7 of these simultaneously, not casually, not theoretically, but actually, becomes the kind of person that others look at and cannot quite account for. They seem to recover faster than they should. They seem to attract what they need without the desperation. They seem to see things coming that others miss entirely. They seem to carry a stability that circumstances cannot shake. That's not luck. That's not personality. That's what happens when ancient, tested, proven principles are actually lived rather than simply admired from a distance. These 7 verses have never failed. Not once. Not when they were truly applied. And they won't start failing now.